Happy Sunday, Buzz City. I'm Eryn Pittsonberger for Hornets.com. That is Matt Rochinski, and this is the HornetsFanshop.com pregame show, looking to take on the Pelicans with an early tip-off today at 5 o'clock. So, guys, make sure to get here early. We're looking forward to it. How things
please make sure to get here early. If you show up at 7, the game's going to be almost over.
Right, you're going to be late.
Here, it's going to be the fourth quarter, and you're like, what happened? Nobody told me. We're telling you right now, be here by 5, please.
You know what, Matt? I kind of like these early games, especially, for the players as well. There's no shoot-around. There's a walkthrough. So I don't know if it necessarily messes with their pregame routine or not, but I think these guys kind of like these early games.
I think in this situation where you're playing these 4 home games right now in a course of 7 days, back to back to back almost, with only the 1 day in between, it's good to have this early start at the end of it because they do not have to come in for shoot around. They don't have to get up early and get here. They get to get a little extra rest before they come in for the walkthrough. And hopefully that's going to give them some extra energy tonight as we try and close this homestand on a winning note.
Yep, trying to close it on a winning note after coming out from a loss on Friday. Lost to the Utah Jazz when they were in town on Friday. What did you notice from that game?
It was tough to see because of the start. I mean, we've talked about all along, when you're on your home court, you don't ever want a team to come out and put it on you and really take control of the game early on. Utah did that. They came out and scored 33 points in the first quarter, hit 5 3-pointers in the first quarter, and we were down 33-19 going into the second. Not the situation you want to be in when you've got a hot team that's playing really well at home and looking to pick up another home win. But the Hornets bounced back well, continued to fight, just nonstop, getting after it. Were able to pull it within a tie in the third quarter. But at the end of the day, it was just too much Utah Jazz from outside the arc. Let me repeat that. Too much Utah Jazz from outside the arc, which doesn't really make sense if you're looking at the stats in the NBA this season. Utah's near the bottom in three-point shooting. So what Coach Borrego did was he had the right game plan. He knew what he was supposed to do against this team, stop them inside, prevent Rudy Gobert from dominating the paint, and prevent Donovan Mitchell from getting to the line and to the rack. They were doing that. You don't expect Utah to come out and hit 18 threes. But there was a new guy on that Jazz team in Kyle Korver who hit 4 threes in his Jazz debut. So this might be kind of commonplace for the Jazz going forward. Maybe the Hornets just exposed it for everyone else.
Well, you just hit all 4 of my questions that I was
man.
going to ask you, so
Goodness,
let's roll right into those highlights.
It takes to play and be a good player at this level.
Says that baseball is still his first love. Kemba gets inside.
Nice ball fake. Look at him turn the corner right there. Just a little.
Kemba caught that ball in an awkward spot for him. Here's Batum. Off the window. A little Scottie Pippen action.
Beautiful shot to watch. At a good angle of that.
We've got a timeout. We have played almost half of our first quarter. Hornets looking to get untracked against Utah.
The ball goes through for 3. As we got Mitchell and then Korver makes one, and all of a sudden it's infectious. There's Kemba Walker with another nice move here.
Stolen away. Kemba. Here comes MKG. Against Crowder. Throwing it through.
Trying to exploit something and get the other team out of what they like to do.
Harden blocked by Gobert. Steps up Bridges. Oh, Miles not intimidated one bit.
Offensive rebound, and look at Miles Bridges. Rudy Gobert, look, as soon as he realizes, oh, that's 0 coming at me, I'm not going to jump at that one. I'm just going to give it.
Tough start to the basketball, a 4-point lead. Frank Kaminsky on the court in place of Cody with the rejection. Nick Batum give the assist to Kemba. Hornets down 8. Marvin turns on Crowder and throws it through.
Spin delivery by Tony Parker.
Kemba working on Royce O'Neal. MKG a screen. Kemba. Scores on top of Gobert.
Quickly he goes around Gobert, and he knows Gobert's beating down on him.
4 times in his career he has led the league in 3-point shooting. Oh my goodness! Corkscrew reverse for Kemba.
Joining us now is Sam Perley from Hornets.com. He is no stranger to this table right here. Sam, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Sunday back-to-back. Of course it's Perley World time. We're all excited about this. Let's go.
Perley World. Perley World hot takes. We're just coming out of Utah Jazz highlights from Friday. What did you notice from that game?
I think the biggest thing, and JB pointed this out afterwards, that they did such a good job on that paint and protecting the paint, but they could not stop the three-point shooting. They have season-high 18 threes. I think Cody's injury kind of left the team scrambling scrambling defensively, and I think you put so much pressure on that paint, guarding Rudy Gobert and guarding Donovan Mitchell when he does the drives, that he just kicks it out. And even with Joe Ingles in foul trouble that game, Jay Crowder had a monster night. They had a couple other guys that really went off. And JB said after the game, you can't shut down everything. And that was just one of those nights where Utah got hot and they had their number that night. So a tough loss, but there wasn't a whole lot you could do considering the circumstance. I think it was just kind of a bad matchup.
Tough loss for sure. Now, we were talking about Kemba a little bit earlier. And, earlier in the season, he was averaging near 30 points a game. Now, lately, he's the last couple of games, he's averaging now 20 points. And not saying that that's a bad stat by any means. However, he's not the Kemba Walker that he was earlier on in the season. What have you noticed?
Well, I think the run he was on at the beginning of the year, it's just, let's be honest, it's not 100% sustainable. It's very hard to do that. In the last 6 games, he's averaging 20 points, but he's only shooting 38% and 30% from 3. So I think teams are starting to kind of lock in right now. But it does 2 things. One, it opens up other guys to score. And he's been doing a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in the box sheet. So right now, he's 4th in the league in charges drawn. That's basically a steal. If you think about it. He's 6th in the league in contested threes per game, and he's 8th in the league in loose balls recovered. This is all stuff that's just kind of getting on the floor, doing the dirty work, stuff that doesn't come up. But when you think about it, you take a charge from a guy and he hits a 2-pointer, that's like scoring 2 points on the other end. So he's doing a lot of different stuff, and his assists are still really high. He's averaging 6.5, almost 7 assists per game right now, which is probably close to top 10, top 15 in the league. So he's doing so many other things right now. Even when his shot's not falling, and that's a sign of a great player, doing other things when maybe your shot's not going in for a couple games.
Is this a little bit surprising to you, though? Because as guys kind of get to that all-star level and get to that almost superstar level, there's not a lot of those guys who turn everyone around them better. LeBron does a tremendous job of that. Steph does a good job of that. That's something that's also starting to show with Kemba Walker.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you have other teams when you score a 60-point game and then score 43 at afterwards, teams are going to take notice. He is the #1 priority going into every game. You heard Quinn Snyder said it last week. He thought the Jazz coach thought he was the best 3-point shooter in the league with the Currys and the Hardens. I mean, that's a huge. I mean, that's elite. That's the best of 3-point shooting. So. He's the focal point every game, and I think it's given opportunities for Jeremy Lamb, it's given opportunities for Nick, it's given opportunities for guys off the bench. Tony's been playing very well, and it just happens, and it's kind of adjust. And now what is Kemba going to do to kind of get back on that trajectory and scoring 30 points a game, which is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. I think sometimes we take it for granted a little bit how good he is, and there's nothing wrong with going out there and scoring 20 points and having 7 or 8 assists in a night if it means Jeremy Lamb's getting 20 points, or Nick Batum's getting 15 points, or Marvin's had a couple really good games lately. Cody just had a season high. So this, it's kind of just, it's like a chess match. It's an ongoing chess match throughout the year. And
in that chess match, we're also seeing Coach Borrego go to that lineup of Tony and Kemba earlier, sometimes towards the end of first quarters, and later in third quarters into the fourth. Is that to take pressure off Kemba?
I think so, a little bit. I've seen Tony close in the Milwaukee game. He closed in the Utah game as well. I think the Atlanta one was kind of out of reach at that point, so maybe he didn't play him as much. But Tony's been great, just from an organizational standpoint. And the thing that impresses me most, and I've said it before, Tony, is everything he does on the court is so deliberate. There's no wasted movement. Every pass, every movement, every shot. I mean, his shot selection is unbelievable. I mean, he's not making every single one of them, but every single shot he gets, he doesn't take contested threes. He doesn't, and he's so good at getting through the lane. You saw, I think, 4 or 5 shots in that Utah game. I mean, he's going right by Rudy Gobert, who's probably a foot taller than at most, and just sneaking the ball in for a layup, kind of like Kemba was doing. I think that's helped him a lot. If he can become a viable scoring threat in that fourth quarter, it opens things up for Kemba when we really need him kind of in these late game situations, and it opens the floor. You have one guy that can score, add a second, and it just opens things up.
Seems like he's been getting some help lately, not only from Tony, but from Jeremy Lamb as well. I want to talk about him for a second because you mentioned him earlier. He's scored double-figure scoring in his last 14 games. What have you noticed from him, and do you think that he's a viable option for that second scorer?
Absolutely. I mean, he's kind of gone off the radar right now a little bit with how well Kemba's been playing, and Jeremy has evolved so much since he's gotten here. This is his 4th season, but he went from his first year, I mean, he didn't even finish the season because of just DNPs, and now he's averaging 15 points a game. He's already has 6 20-point games this season. That's a career high. He's scored 20 points in 3 straight games. That's also a career high, and he had a season high against Utah, and I think he tied a season high against Milwaukee or Atlanta. So he's been on a tear right now. I think the impresses me most is he's scoring more ways than one. In the past, it used to just be he had this floater and can hit threes occasionally. You see him, he's hitting some off-balance shots. He's being aggressive. He's getting to the line, I mean, he can just score in a number of different ways. I mean, it's fun to watch. It's fun to see the growth of seeing him 3 or 4 years ago when he's still very, very young in the league, 7th-year veteran. I mean, this guy has figured it out, offensively at least, and defensively, he's 6'7", he's long, he can guard, he's a very, very good defender, especially for opposition, the shooting guard position. So it's nice to see, and this guy's worked so hard the last couple summers. Had an opportunity last year when Nick went down, took advantage of the 15 games he was a starter, went back to the bench, went to his role again, went out and won the starting shooting guard position this year, and has just run with it. And I think he's been a phenomenal. It's great. It's great to see a guy work hard and play well, and get what he deserves. And he's certainly complimented Kemba very well this season so far.
It's crazy hearing him earlier on in the season when people were talking to him about his evolving in the league, how crazy it is what you can do off the court in order to help your game on the court. What do you see him, if he keeps this up, where do you see him in the next few seasons?
Well, it's a tricky situation because he is a free agent this summer, so that's not really for us to decide what's going to happen or anything. Obviously, we'd love to have him back. He's very close with Kemba, and he's playing well. And if it works out, and he comes back. But he certainly has found a role here. I think he loves being here. I think the guys love him here. He's obviously him and Kemba have a history at UConn, right? Or UConn winning the national title a few years ago. So. It's right now you just kind of focus on this season, and whatever happens in the summer. But right now he's fitting that role of that secondary scorer, and it's not if you just have that one extra guy. In the past it's kind of been Kemba, and sometimes not necessarily options to the other side. But you have Kemba and one else that just opens things up immensely. It opens things up for Marvin, opens things up for Nick, opens things up for Cody, Tony, whoever's on the court. So he's been great this year, and it's everything I think JB hoped and expected from him.
All right, Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
Hot takes.
Yeah.
Hot takes, those pearls of wisdom. Let's take a look at those Jeremy Lamb highlights.
Three-pointer. They average 12. Pass way too high. Even for the jumping jack clear it in. Jeremy Lamb, strong move. That's how you do it. That should change. Lamb scores, and we've got a foul. This first half. Look at him realize he's got a taller guy. Waits for Cook. Thought about a three. Lamb runs into Baines. Are they going to score it? They will. Chance for a three-point play. Jeremy Lamb able to fight it up and in. He did just that. To be able to shoot threes like that now, he had that shot in his game all along. It's just, Cody threw Lamb an absolute grenade, and Lamb threw it through. Cody right there, good job not to walk, and the defense, Brogdon, a really good defensive player, gets caught standing still as he thinks the shot clock's going to expire. He actually gets a good contest on Lamb. Lamb turns the corner, gets it, and he's fouled. The Jeremy Lamb special. It's the energy that MKG brings to the entire game when he's on the floor. 85. Lamb's got to do some work. Shot clock's down to 1. Lamb fires it up the window and in. Jeremy Lamb right here looks right up, sees the shot clock and says, "Okay, I got to make a play." And look at that, how far he was off balance. Block shots, especially that one on the ball. Shot clock's at 4. The Hornets recognize they do. Lamb along 3, rattles it in. Good job by Lamb against Gobert. He had a good angle to start with when he...
All right, now we just took a look at Lamb highlights from Friday night. Now we were talking with Sam about development with Jeremy Lamb. Now I want to talk a little bit about our development as the Charlotte Hornets, and we have a Greensboro Swarm NBA G League team up in Greensboro, obviously, and we sent Devontae Graham and Dwayne Bacon down there to play a game last night. What did you notice from that game?
I mean, we know that player development is huge for the Charlotte Hornets team. They said they wanted to get this Greensboro Swarm team more involved this season and really use these players to give them a chance just to get some run. There's something about when you're sitting down and not playing games, you're practicing hard every day and you're going at it and you're trying to get these guys prepared, but you're also losing that kind of competitive edge because you might not be able to get into a game. Sent those guys down last night. They did their best to try and get the Greensboro Swarm a victory. Dwayne Bacon had 17 points and 8 rebounds, did what he does, is active on the glass. Good to see him getting out and up and down the court. And Devontae Graham had 17 points, 4 steals, which I like to see, and 4 assists. So to get 34 points combined out of those guys, run the stats up a little bit, get them some run, get them confidence, so when they come back here, they're going to feel comfortable when they get that chance to play. We've seen that all season long. These guys, have, especially Devontae, has kind of gone back and forth, but still continues to be an extremely impressive and contributing piece to this Hornets team when he gets a chance to play. So I think it's good to get those guys down to the G League whenever they can to get them some run and really boost their confidence.
And now speaking of that, Devontae, he's averaging 25.5 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 2.8 steals in 35 minutes of play during his time in Greensboro. For somebody who was drafted in the 2nd round, how much of an impact do you think he can make if he continues to go down there and put up these numbers? How much of a direct impact can he make later on in this season?
I think it's really great for him. I think the Swarm are going to want to hang on to him as much as they can. They're saying, Devontae, why don't you stay down here? He wants to be up with this team, though. He wants to be around Kemba, wants to be around Tony, and he's been developing. To be able to continue to play the way he's been playing, showcase what he can do, like I said, build that confidence up, but then be back up here with Kemba and Tony to get that advice. As this season progresses, you have to imagine Tony Parker didn't play a full season last year. Eventually, Tony Parker is going to get tired. We know that there's going to be those days off on back-to-backs throughout the season, and you might see them come a little more down the line as the season progresses. So that's going to mean Devontae Graham needs to really step up, and I think he's ready to do it.
Now we've seen their head coach Joe Wolf here a handful of times talking with Coach Borrego. How important is that line of communication between these two head coaches?
Oh, I think it's tremendous, because that way when you send these guys down, our fans might be going, why did you send them down for one day to go down and play in one game, and now they're back up here in Charlotte to be available tonight should they be needed? That's important because they get down there. If you're constantly communicating with the coach down there and the coach up here, you're running the same offense, you have the same mindset. When those guys are sent down, I'm sure there's a phone call going on where Coach Borrego is saying, this is what I want these guys to do. This is what their minutes cap should be. This is what I really need them to work on. And Coach Wolf is down there and knows exactly what to do. We know that guy will get players to do whatever he needs to do.
Love it. Well, let's take a look at these highlights from Devontae Graham and Dwayne Bacon.
By 6 ball at a 4-second differential to the shot clock of Bacon. Bacon drives inside, floating right-hander off the pass. Missed it, got some rebound. Move inside, pump fake, up off the glass and in for Dwayne Bacon. Devontae Graham across the timeline with a left-handed dribble. Goes between the lanes, stops with the left elbow, 50-foot jumper gone. Devontae Graham with 8. Talking dribble across the timeline, gets the pass left corner. Devontae Graham slides the three-pointer, good!
Joining us now is Jim Eichenhofer of Pelicans.com. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's the first time that we've seen you guys here in town this season. How's this season been going for you?
I mean, it's been very inconsistent. It's been up and down, and one of the biggest things that stood out is that the team has struggled on the road so much. They're 2-10 on the road, 9-2 at home. So they started off 4-0, and everything was looking great. But one of the biggest things that I think has swung momentum in the wrong direction is the starting point guard, Elfrid Payton, got hurt. He's only played a total of 6 games, and 2 of those were partial games. So not having him has really made a big difference, and unfortunately it's led to some losing, especially on the road lately.
Now you're coming off of a loss against Miami. What do you think went wrong there on Friday?
Well, the start of the game was something that the players have talked about for the last 2 days, because I mean, they were down 52-21 in the second quarter, which is the kind of margin you don't see in the NBA very often. You see teams go up by 30, but that early in the game and that kind of spread was just something that was kind of alarming. So they've had problems with turnovers lately, and that was also an issue in that game. So without your starting point guard, sometimes that's going to be more of a problem than usual. But But I think they're definitely looking forward to trying to atone for the way that they played, especially at the beginning of the game 2 days ago.
Obviously, you might not have your starting point guard, but you do have that guy, Anthony Davis, put up 41 last game out. Continues to put up amazing numbers. You're not surprised by anything that Anthony's doing?
No, I'm definitely not. I mean, we've seen him, the second half of last season, I think, was the best he's played in the NBA, which is saying something with all the stuff that he's accomplished, that he's been in the All-Star game 5 times. So, yeah, we're past the point of ever being surprised. If anything, sometimes you take it for granted because he'll have 35 and you're just like, it was a decent game by his standards. So, but yeah, even he's had issues this year with injuries, and for a little stretch there, he had a problem with his elbow, so his shooting was a little bit off. So, just like the team in general, it's been, things haven't been ideal for parts of the season so far.
Now, the matchup tonight, obviously, we're seeing contrasting styles. You've got guard-heavy offense versus big-heavy offense going at it. What do you expect to see tonight?
I think that one of the biggest emphasis for the Pelicans is going to be defensively in general, but I know that they're focusing on that they have to do something against Charlotte's guards. I mean, I think everybody knows that, Kemba Walker's been amazing just from afar, just to watch some of the stuff that he's done this year with a 60-point game. And it seems like, having watched you guys play sporadically, that Tony Parker has been a great addition. I mean, I think every team in the league would love to have a backup point guard that has the experience that he has and has done the things that he's done. So I think from the Pelicans standpoint, just trying to contain some of what Charlotte's backcourt guys can do is going to be a big emphasis tonight.
And now, looking at the records right now, the Hornets and the Pelicans kind of share similar records. However, with you all being in the Western Conference and us being in the East, our standings are drastically different here.
Yep.
What is it about the West that makes it so competitive over there?
The thing about this year, too, is I've said this for the last few years, that every time you think, okay, this is the most competitive the West is going to be, this is the most formidable the competition is, it gets tougher. And when you look at the standings right now in the West, it's incredible to see that there's basically 14 teams that are within a game or two of 500. And going into the season, too, I thought the tier of teams at the bottom that aren't going to have much of a chance to compete was going to be really small. But basically it's one team right now, with Phoenix is the only team that's well out of the race. So that part of it has been, even for someone that's used to seeing the West be so rugged the way it has been, it's been almost shocking to see that it's gotten even tougher this year. So, but I mean, for Charlotte, I think you mentioned how these teams have similar records, but really, if you look at the stats more deeply, I think the Charlotte season has been better from, if you look at a lot of the advanced stats, you guys are 7th, I think, in net rating. The Pelicans are 15 or 16, and I think they expect to be much higher than that. They didn't expect to be going to the season as a middle of the pack team. So there's definitely a lot of room for them to improve and just do better than what they've done the first 2 months of the season.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us. I would wish you luck, but I really hope that the Hornets pull this one out. But no, I really appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. No problem.
All right, early tip tonight, guys. 5 o'clock tip-off. Make sure to tune in on Fox Sports Southeast or listen on WFNZ if you're not here at Spectrum Center. For Jim and Matt, I'm Eryn Pittsonberger for Hornets.com.